All right, good afternoon, exhibitors. Heather, how many people registered for this? About 80? 70. So, there's an old saying, people say half a success is just showing up. Well, a lot of people miss that rule, so we appreciate you guys being here. How many of you came to last year's session? We did a seminar. Anybody? You were here last year? Cool. Last year's was more of I think we're getting into secrets of the aisles and how to work. You guys are all familiar with the NAA, the Exhibitor Success and ROI Center. That's like your 24/7, your knowledge portal. You've got all those webinars, all that content. And so what this program is about, Heather and the entire team at NAA is really committed to you as exhibitors to help you get the most from the time and money that you invest into the conference and everything. And this is a neat session. It's one of my favorites because I don't have to do all the talking. No, actually, because we're going to get to hear, we've got a panel here of people that represent a good cross-section of the industry. And this session is called Inside the Mind of the Apartment Industry Buyer. And so we're going to kind of go inside and get them to share from how they see the world, this whole thing about shows. And this is a very interactive session. So I want you to be prepared to submit questions. Kind of the flow of it will be is we're going to start off with in the area of why they attend, and we'll learn a little bit about what their motives and their intentions of attending are, and then we'll get into pre-show, what happens with them in the days and the weeks leading up to showtime, how they're preparing, maybe what you can do to get in their attention, get on their agenda. And then we'll go into the at-show. They're here, how they manage it, the exhibit floor, everything. And then we'll go into the post. Doors closed, they go back. And so think about what questions you might have. How do I are the best type? Like, for example, if you've been calling Keith here, for the last 6 weeks and he's not returning your calls, this is not the place. You know what I mean? So that type of stuff. Let's start off here. I'm a big believer in that the buyer's perception is the seller's reality. It's how they see the world and the choices and the vendors and the options that really matters. We as marketers can sit in a room and we can do our best thinking and our brainstorming about them, but the better we understand them, the more effective we can be in communicating, engaging, and ultimately winning their business. So the buyer's perception, seller's reality. That's what this is about. So I want to start off, we've got 4 panelists. They're going to do a brief self-introduction, who they are, company they work for, what they do, and anything else you feel that they need to know about you. So we'll start here and go right down the line.
All right. Keith Corvo, I work with the Dolben Company. I'm a regional director out of our Mid-Atlantic portfolio. Our company manages about 12,500 apartments. I have a portfolio of 22 communities in Maryland and Virginia with 3 regionals and based out of Boston.
22 communities, you say 12,500 apartments?
Yeah, a total of 55 communities the Dolben Company manages. The Mid-Atlantic is 22 of them.
Okay, nice, wow. All right, it's good to have you, Keith.
My name's Gardner Reese. I work at Graystar. I'm a senior managing director of Advantage Solutions, which encompasses all of our national accounts, all of our partnerships, online leasing platforms, screening, receivables, collections, insurance products, etc. I'm based out of Dallas. I've been with Graystar for about 11 years, and Graystar, as some of you may know, is about 400,000 units. We have approximately 1,700 buildings in I don't know how many states. There's a couple we're not in. But pretty much right across the country. So I work outside of day-to-day operations, but I support all of operations nationwide.
Nice, awesome to have you. Thank you. Alan?
My name is Alan King, and I'm with the Berkshire Group. We're an owner-manager. We have roughly 25,000 units. We do very little fee management. Our portfolio is in all the major markets, heavy in Texas, heavily in D.C., the Southeast, expanding into the West Coast fairly aggressively. And I am the president of Berkshire Communities and managing director of property operations for the Berkshire Group out of Boston.
How many units or properties are you guys working with?
We have 25,000 units, about 78 properties with about 14 in the pipeline.
Okay, it's great to have you, Alan. Appreciate you being here. Last but not least, Amy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Groff. I'm with Kettler Management. We're based out of Tyson's Corner in Virginia. I am one of 3 VPs of operations with Kettler. My portfolio consists of about a little over 40 apartment communities, ranging from newly developed in lease up through, I have HUD-based Section 8 apartment communities as well, so we run the gamut of different types of properties. Kettler is in growth mode. Right now we have about almost 30,000 units. We have properties ranging from New York through North Carolina now. So we're concentrating in the Mid-Atlantic, but we are definitely in growth mode right now. I oversee about 6 regional property managers.
All right, good to have you. Nice cross-section here. Hey, I want to say something about the panel, too. They volunteered their time to be here, so their commitment is to share as much as you. Can we give them a round of applause for coming out? There's other places you could be today, right? And you're here, so thank you. So let's start off with this high level. If we want to understand you better, and you're here at the Exposition, the conference, as you look down the pike here the next 6, 12, 18 months with regard to your units, your properties, what's got your attention? What are you thinking about? What are you concerned about? What are you focusing on? What are you worried about? What's keeping you awake at night? And just let it hang out. Whatever's kind of got you as you look down this pike here the next 6, 12, 18 months, what's got your attention? And this time we'll start with Amy, and we'll come back this way.
Well, I think, as I said, we're in growth mode right now. So what has my attention is we do a lot of fee management. So I've got all sorts of different owner asset managers that we have to please. And when you're in growth mode, everybody feels a little overworked, kind of stretched a little bit. So we're looking at what can we do to stay on top of this growth, and really what efficiencies can we put in place to help my team not feel so stretched, make sure that we give the best recommendations to our ownership so that they have the best bottom line for their communities. So how do we manage this growth with being innovative and staying on top of the online leasing solutions, making sure integrations work well for our properties. So I think the integration issues, the growth, and just making sure we're staying ahead of the game.
Staying ahead of the game. So efficiencies, managing the growth, yes. And that's quite a challenge. And so anything that we would have as potential partners that can help you manage this more efficiently, it's going to flash on your radar. You'll notice that. Okay, good. Alan?
A couple things similar to Amy. We've been on our same operating platform. I believe it's the same platform Graystar's on, and but clearly platforms are changing from a property management software standpoint. Market data platforms are changing. Clearly, CoStar has changed the advertising world and the way they're doing that. And one of the big things for us is you commit to a platform. It's not a short-term process. The change management associated with any major process that you have is not something that you change on a regular basis. Same thing with national vendors. Our national vendors, like a lot of companies, we negotiate those well in advance. We're loyal to our vendor partners, and as long as we get great service for those, part of our job, at least if you're controlling the purchasing side of it, is consolidate your purchasing buying power and not dilute it too much. So you try and concentrate that into as few of existing major providers as you can. But that's at the major level: maintenance, supply, products, flooring of all types, those type things. One thing that's got our attention is we want to get out of the package handling business. We've managed through Active Building and Building Link, both are great programs, but the idea of the boxes, self-serve, we're testing a number of those products, and that's something that will give our office sites back some free time, some man hours, and so we're spending a lot of time in that area as well.
So as most people know, Greystar just bought Riverstone. I came from the Riverstone side, and so, what I'm looking at for the next 6, 12, 18 months is really focusing on trying to pull our systems together. I ran at Riverstone the ancillary group, and Greystar did not have that type of representation in the ancillary services. And so part of the merging of our two companies came to take ancillary services, rename it Advantage Solutions, and try to roll that out across the full Greystar platform. And so it's a lot of what Amy and Alan were just speaking to. It's consistency of platform, it's consolidation of partners and consolidations of programs. Something that keeps us up at night a lot is when an owner comes to a show like this and sees a really cool, fantastic, brand new product out in the field, and then says, I want that on my building, and forces us to put it on the building. And then we find out through what Amy was talking about, integration issues or training issues or something that it conflicts with a program or a platform that we currently have in place. And it's not something that we can do overnight. I don't think any one of our companies, no matter how big or small we are, can implement a new product overnight and as quickly as some of our owners want us to implement them, because we have to make sure they don't conflict with something. Integrating or putting on Building Link to a real page platform causes a problem that you have to solve. Putting on an active building platform to a Yardi program will cause a problem that you have to solve. And so that's really what keeps me up, my team up, is trying to drive efficiencies, not necessarily for, at this point, at property management side, although that's my end goal, but it's also drive efficiency at the corporate level so that we can support and help service our properties and our clients as best as we can with the resources we have available to us.
So one of the things we're always looking at, everybody's kind of faced with the growth challenges right now. It's nice to have. It's the planning to make sure that we have the right teams in place, the right staffing in place. So, as we continue to grow, we have a lot of development in the pipeline, making sure that we have the right people in place so that we can actually take over the assets and be successful. Integrating with those people, the many initiatives that are continually kind of being thrusted upon us to explore, and actually trying to prioritize and figure out which ones will have a benefit for the properties, for the staff, and for the residents, and actually figuring out what actually works and what doesn't work, and determining which product to start looking at first and which one to put down at the bottom of the list.
It's managing growth, and then a lot of different competing priorities, and you have all these changes, all the stuff you could do, can't do it all.
Right.
So you got to figure out what. Okay. Any questions from you in terms of kind of who they are and what they're facing, what's going on today with their properties? Yes, sir.
My name's Chris. I'm actually with Luxor One Package Delivery, so I love the I had a question more for all of us about budgeting. Always a big question when we're talking to a regional or a property, and they say, we're working on budgets for next year. How do you approach that, and what's your recommendation for us as vendors?
Well, I think really understanding what the company's budget process is. Is it driven at the site level? Is it done, for many of the smaller platforms, it's done at the property manager and at the DM level. A property that's, gotten up fairly significant number of units, controls the process, and it's driven more by senior management. But, we start our process. I will tell you, we do 5-year forecasts every year. We do mid-year forecasts. We're getting ready to do that in July. Our forecast for the rest of this year and for the next 5 years after that, and that kind of starts our 2016 budget process, and we'll get together. Our properties work on it in late August, early September, and October. We're trying to fine-tune those numbers. If it's an operational thing, advertising, anything that's allocated to the properties, we need to get that in. We need to have that pricing in August or September. If it is a major capital product, bids for total renovations or roofs or parking garage reconfigurations or something like that. You can wait a little bit later in the process, but typically October. And most of our spend when it comes to carpet and maintenance parts, appliances, that sort of thing, are all negotiated through our national contracts. In many cases, we have multiple-year contracts. So those prices are predefined and are budgeted on a per unit or per appliance. If you're doing an appliance package upgrades, we've got those prices predetermined, and all that is input by our redevelopment group. So property stuff starts August, September. Everything else needs to be finished by October. All of our software, national marketing contracts, anything like that is all tied down by the middle of September.
Budgeting, would anyone add to
So
that?
our starts sometimes a little earlier, but goes through the same timeline. We have some budgets that are due by the end of June for 16, and so, they're doing them right now. And very similar to Alan, we create for our general property management, we create annual assumptions, whether it's a marketing source or an IT source or a website, a screening, et cetera. But these are standard practices, products we've had in place for many years. Luxor is a specialty product, and it's certainly driving in the market, and this is a great venue for Luxor to get out and show the world what they're doing, and probably a great time so that when people are doing their budgets, they're looking right around now for those capital budgets for next year. And so what we generally do is we leave our property and our properties themselves to price non-negotiated national programs for themselves. And so if one property wants to look at Luxor, they call you guys and get a price, and that's great. But if we get into a national partnership, then it becomes part of our budgeting tools and our budgeting platform, and we kind of set the price for everybody simultaneously. So,
I'll add just a little color to that. That's one of the things we're looking at extensively, and we probably have 25 people here, and everybody's looking at the next greatest thing, and somebody like this product, somebody likes this product. Part of our challenge is to control the options, depending on how big a property it is and what you want to do. It can take this type box at this cost. It can take a bigger box at a more expensive cost. Integration is a big piece, but trying to limit the options, and in our case, our existing portfolio we treat one way, but in your case, for your product, any new acquisition, once we make a decision on which of the one or two products we will use, that will be built into our standard underwriting. This property, if this size, it's going to get this size box. And there's no decision point after that. It's predetermined who the vendor is and what the spend is.
Good question on budgeting. I haven't heard that. Any questions got their attention? Anything in that area? Yes. Good question.
Pricing. You have to be competitive with your pricing, because bottom line is we've got to make sure we make the best decisions for our ownership, and that obviously impacts their bottom line. So I would think that one of the number one things is to be very competitive with pricing and the quality of the product that you're offering. Number two, I think, is the service. I think that ultimately who I end up going with is one that gives me the attention that I need, one that answers my questions when I have questions for them. If I ever have a problem or an issue, they're very responsive. I'm going through some issues with our online leasing company right now, where it's been a really struggle. The rollout's been, it's just been a very big struggle for us as a company, but I can tell you I'm sticking with them and going through this because they are so attentive to our needs. And anytime an email goes out or a phone call goes out, they immediately respond, and I get answers right away. So that's very important. So I don't know if you want to add to that, but those are my two top.
Well, you're one of our national vendors, so, yeah, it's priced, but, you know, the purchasing team, senior leadership kind of makes the decision based on, you know, depending on the size of the platform, you know, can you service all the properties within the platform? In some cases, we try and have a national provider and then a regional provider as a second alternative. The biggest way a vendor gets in trouble or a partner gets in trouble is lack of service or follow-up, or, you know, we make mistakes as property management people, and, you know, things are going to happen from a delivery standpoint or service standpoint, and so how you react to a problem really makes a difference. But property people love to complain up to their regionals, and they start screaming, and that's the biggest problem you have with maintaining national control of vendors, is that they want to use their local vendors if they can, because they feel like they get better touch points.
And it's an education on it. I mean, they've hit all the right points. But I'll say that, you know, 1 or 2% higher prices, but better service is going to win me over. You know, Sherwin-Williams is a national partner of ours, and, you know, we had a major problem with a painting issue, and we were on the phone with Sherwin-Williams, and they had people on a plane that night at the property the next morning solving the problem. And that's why we stick with our partners. So, you know, it's the service, it's the commitment, and it's the willingness to go above and beyond to solve a problem when that problem comes up.
Yeah, similarly, I mean, we'll pay more for the right service. And, you know, if we're not getting the service, we're looking to move on. Similarly, we've had some struggles with some of our regional or national accounts where the service is being delivered on a higher level but not down to the property level, and that's where it really counts. And we've had to make changes because of that. So we look for the service all the way through.
Yeah, you know, pricing, we get caught into this oftentimes thinking everybody's just wants to buy the cheapest, right? And I just read a research report online that said in the business-to-business market space, only 16% of purchasing decisions are made with price being the number one factor as to why they chose one company over another. And so, you know, if you're a little more and you pay attention to responsiveness and quick problem solving, and you have a reputation for that, you know, you're going to have their ears. Nicely said. Great question, too. Any other questions before we move show specific? Any questions? So keep them flowing as we come. Yeah, one more and then we'll jump into show.
Well, we've struggled with compliance, I'll tell you. And I think Alan mentioned it, you know, our property managers will jump at the opportunity to prove us wrong and find something cheaper, whether it's an appliance or whether it's a flooring product or even a paint product, et cetera. You know, personally, I have analysts that work on my team, and this may be a factor of having a very large company and being able to support those extra people. But I have analysts on my team who I ask for compliance reporting, and they go straight to the GL, and we pull out everyone who's being paid. We have a purchasing software in place. It's not on all our properties. It's currently only on about a third of our properties, so we can't really rely on that for everything. But we do look at compliance reporting, and then we go out and we work with the regions, we work with our divisions to talk about the pros and the cons of, you know, working on a single platform. I'll say that some of our national programs are in the high 90% compliance, and some of them are in the low 80s. And it's frustrating seeing the low 80s. And, you know, our national partners continue to tell us that we're in the low 80s. They watch it as well. But it is a struggle, and it's something that, you know, I'd love to find a better way to do it.
We've actually, we're a much smaller shop than Graystar, but we've tried to do it internally, and it's very difficult to have the manpower and resources to track all the purchases. And so we partner with a group like yours that helps audit. It helps us with the compliance piece. It helps validate our national pricing compared to they don't tell us what everybody else, they don't tell me what Graystar's price is. I'd love to know that. But they tell me, you're getting top-tier pricing, for your size. Actually, they tell me we're getting better pricing than we should be getting for our size. But so we use a consultant similar to yours to really advise us on where we have the biggest bang for the buck. If it's in flooring, if it's in appliances, where can we get where are we greatest out of compliance, and where can we consolidate? And we focus on one or two major projects over the course of the year to try and tighten it up. But it's a constant problem.
So let's talk shows here. You're a pretty impressive group. When I look at just the number of properties and buildings and how much responsibility you guys carry, you got a lot of demands on your time, and yet you make time. You carve this block out of your schedule to come and leave your operations behind for these days. Give me the high level. Why do you come? What are the big reasons? Why do you come and attend the NAA Conference Expo? Why are you here?
Why am I here? I'd like to bring back new ideas to our group to share here's what we saw, here's some takeaways, so that we can roll out some new initiatives, hopefully. With the upcoming budget season coming, it's a great time to be here. So the other piece of it is the networking aspect. I come here because I see, I've been in the business for over 20 years, and I have a lot of friends in the business, so I love to come see everyone and also network with all of our vendors. They do a lot of pre-planning for this, and I set up appointments with vendors and carve out some time because I don't always get to see them in my office. Some of them, work very far away from the Metro DC area, so it's nice to be able to come here and just touch base with them and catch up. That's why I come.
So new, see what's new, network both with your colleagues, your industry, and your vendors. Okay, what else? Why do you guys come to the show?
We actually bring all of our property managers and above, so we have an attendance over 70 people from with 55 communities, it's quite a few people that we bring out here, and we invest in the educational aspect. We can't get this kind of exposure at our level to bring in any one of the speakers here. So through the educational aspect, there's a great value there, and then the trade show just kind of adds to that.
Learning, education.
And we bring not quite down to our property managers, but we have almost 300 people here, and to be honest, 290 of those people have their own agenda. I'm not entirely sure what they're doing here and what their goal is. I know why they're here, and it's probably because of the educational aspect, but that's operations. I bring my team here for almost more of what Amy was talking about, and I want my team, my direct team, to go out specifically to vendors, suppliers, partners, the trade show, and find the diamond in the rough, find that niche that's just starting to explode, because we do want to think of ourselves as leading edge and bleeding edge. We may not be able to integrate and start with that brand new stuff, but I want to be aware of it, so when our owners, we're primarily third parties, so when our owners come to us and say, I saw this and I really want it, we actually have people who understand what it is, why we can or cannot use it, et cetera. And so that's really what my team is focused on. And the other aspect that Amy nailed was the networking aspect. And I try not to network too much with our existing partners because I do see them quite often, and I love saying hi to them, et cetera. But for me to actually start working with a new partner, I want to know them more. I want to know them, how they work with other people, how they interact with others. Do they keep their commitments, whether it's just meeting me for breakfast or coffee or whatever. And so I'd like getting to know our partners a little better, especially our newer partners.
Deepen the relationship. Anything else, Alan, would you add?
For all of you that are trying to get in with a company for the first time, the existing vendors that already are in the door are trying to make sure you don't have any time to talk to anybody else. you know, let's face it, people want to protect their business. They want to protect the relationship. So we spend, you know, all of our existing vendor partners clearly want to get a little bit of our time. They want to know, how are we doing? Where do we have problems? You know, we may finalize a national contract. So that's part of it. It is maintaining the relationships with existing providers, and if you've had some service issues, you know, you're having some tough conversations at that point, and you may be looking at alternatives, and it may be one of those things where you look at it for a year or two before you actually pull the trigger. Same thing with software technology, you know, marketing. You know, we've all have our base property management platforms and all of these other ancillary products that everybody will tell you or will integrate. That doesn't always happen. So trying to be ahead of that, you know, we try and protect the core platform and say, will this platform do everything we need to do, and try and avoid doing best of breed marketing here or purchasing here or wherever the discipline is, just to avoid the integration problems. It's not worth the change for us. But we research new stuff and may watch things for 2 or 3 years. We watch software platforms. Perfect example, PSI. 5 years ago, nobody heard about them. You know, maybe, you know, they were a great accounting package. You know, they've made a huge push on their platform, and so. And there are a number of other companies out there, Package Concierge and all of the different package systems. You know, that's a new thing for us, and just, you know, where are they? What's their technology? And we'll test. We'll say we're going to do it on 2 or 3 properties and see what we like before we make a final decision on 1 or 2 providers.
So take us into your mind here. You have overchoice of what to do at the conference. You've got educational sessions, you've got the exhibit hall, you've got colleagues here to network with. Of course, you've got Las Vegas. You know, there's a swimming pool out there. I don't know if you can handle the heat, but so what's happening with you 4 to 6 weeks? You know you've got this event on your calendar. You know that you have overchoice of what to do and where to spend your time. Take us inside of how you prepare before you get here to optimize your time away from the office. How do you prepare? What's going on, you individually and maybe with your team or company, to prepare for getting the most from your time at this event? Preparation.
Well, thank God for my administrative assistant, because she gets everything together for me, and I just funnel all of the invitations and meetings and events to her, and she actually sets up an itinerary, not just for me, but for our whole team. We have about 21 people here. So she really coordinates everything, RSVPs for everything, and keeps us all straight. So honestly, that's how I prepare. It's just funneling all the information to her, and she creates my itinerary. And then what I do is just kind of do the follow-up on my end. What are my real responsibilities? What do I need to prepare for, i.e. coming to this meeting, making sure that I'm prepared, and just really kind of think about, you know, what do I need to do to be prepared for my meetings.
Do you come with a pretty firm agenda? You have a schedule, you go, here's my blocks.
I really do. I don't have time to go to the pool. I'm not a big Vegas person, so mine's all about kind of meetings and just seeing some friends. So I have,
Pretty firm blocks. So you know where your blocks, sessions you're going to attend, where your blocks in the exhibit hall, where your meetings are going to be, and that's pretty well all thought out in advance.
yes,
A little bit of wiggle room, but not much, right?
yeah.
Alan, how do you prepare?
Well, I always come in early because of the NAA meetings, and you know, it's important. I recognize, and most of us do, that you know, we couldn't have a show like this if it weren't for our vendor partners who come to exhibit and our sponsors. So, you know, you're here to make money. You're here to support the industry, and we want to reciprocate and say, you know, we appreciate you being here. I know the NAA leadership makes it a point to walk through the exhibit hall and, you know, say thank you for being there. So we couldn't do it without you, and so we want to try and give back that same degree of attention and respect as well. I try and leave a little bit of time, flexibility. I do set specific appointments where we're finalizing contracts or we're getting a demo on a product that we're thinking about rolling out. But I leave myself enough time to spend a couple hours on the floor every year. We have about 24 people. Some are marketing, some are purchasing, some are construction related, some are operations related, and so we'll divide and conquer on who we want to meet with. And but if it's a demo or something related to a platform change, we will have a specific demo time set up, not on the floor, but typically somewhere else, to take advantage of having everybody here at one time.
Preparation, Gardner, what's happening?
So, it's interesting. I wait to the last minute. It frustrates a lot of people who are trying to make appointments with me, but I just happen to wait till the last minute. I end up looking at what's fixed. Jay Leno's here, that's blocked, I'd like to see that. The trade show, I never book appointments during the trade show because, I think the vendor partners have done a lot of work, paid a lot of money. I want to respect that, and I want to make sure that my attention's on the trade show. And so if you want a meeting with me, it's outside the trade show, after hours, and that's it. And so there's only so many other hours. I book them up from 8 o'clock in the morning until, dinner, past dinner, 10 o'clock at night. Usually the later ones are more friendly meetings. But I don't actually, my preparation is really looking at or asking my team what their focuses are going to be. And, I have 4 or 5 direct people that I want here and I want focused on the trade show, looking for those new ideas, those, bleeding edge technologies that are just starting to come out. And, let's make sure we spend our time looking at those and not overlapping too much. And so, one person will say, this is my focus, it's great, that's your focus. We're staying away from those partners because the trade show, honestly, I've never actually been able to get through the whole thing. And so my goal is to make sure we divide and conquer, and that's how we prepare.
So we're a little bit more structured on the educational side. So we line up with all our managers well in advance of what educational sessions they're going, make sure they kind of mirror their property and some of their challenges they might be facing personally. For the trade show, we leave it open to all the managers to kind of go as they see please to find out what they might find intriguing and beneficial for their property. Regionals and higher will have, sporadic appointments set up, but most of us kind of leave it open so that we have the opportunity to visit different vendors and partners that we don't typically see on a regular basis and then get exposed to new ideas. So.
It's kind of cool to be working with a group like this. I do a lot of shows, a lot of them are in healthcare, and it seems like the surgeons and the doctors, it's like the exhibit hall is like the freak show. It's like the tent out there with the jar with the 4-headed frog in it or something. But all of them tell me that the exhibit hall is a major part of their focus, and that's really good to know. So you mentioned it's not possible to get through. There's so many booths. You can't stop and talk to every company, right? And one of the things we've been talking with exhibitors about over the years is the importance of identifying who they want to see before the show and getting on your agenda. So let's go to that. What advice would you give an exhibitor? Alan, if I wanted you to be sure, I want to be on your must-see list when you hit that exhibit hall, and all you think about that, how would I go about in the days and weeks leading up to showtime in terms of communicating with you to get on your must-see list? What advice would you give me over the days and weeks leading up to showtime on your agenda?
I think an email or phone call, email's better for me, quite honestly. I travel a lot, so I typically will get it sooner. And I try and make my appointments on the floor for the most part. So that's the easiest way. Do it well in advance. The schedule gets filled pretty quickly. And so I will try and limit commitments on the floor to maybe 4 a day, and to allow myself enough time to get around to the other things I want to see.
How far, when you say in advance of the show, You guys are all what we call power buyers, so is it 4 weeks? Is it 2 months? How?
I think 4 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks before the show, is about the time invitations for events start to come out. But I think 3 or 4 weeks is a good time.
Amy, you already gave us one clue on how to get on your agenda, and that is work through your assistant.
Yes.
She's your right arm, so, really know who her assistant is and become, in there. But what advice would you?
I think it's more about the follow-up after the show for me. I think getting an email in advance, I'm so busy, and I know it sounds cliche, but I get an email and it kind of gets put on the back burner for my day, and sometimes I get to them and sometimes I don't. But what I think is important is if I make the time to come and see your booth because it shows that it's something I'm interested in, I definitely appreciate the follow-up afterwards, even if it's something I'm not interested in. It was nice to meet you at your booth. I know who you are now, and it's kind of on a personal level, so I appreciate an email afterwards just saying, hey, Amy, it was great to meet you. Please keep us in mind, do you have any follow-up questions? That's more of what I appreciate from the trade show, because, I don't know, planning ahead of time, it's just hard for me I do get a lot of emails saying, hey, don't forget about our booth, and it's a lot to keep on top of.
See, that's the great thing here is with the panel is we're getting this great cross-section, and you're seeing that not one thing fits everybody, and the importance of understanding the different people's needs. So email. Yes, Alan?
Well, let me add a point of clarity, because during the last week, I've gotten these, pre-programmed stop-by booth. That doesn't work. You know what I'm saying? It's got to be a personal email to reach out to me, for me to get that. Yeah.
Personalizing the email too, huh?
Yeah, I was about to disagree with Alan. The emails don't work. It's just something, it's how, delete. Because, there's just so many. And, but I'm glad Alan clarified that. I truly believe strongly in introductions, in connections. And so, if somebody calls me and says, hey, I want to introduce you to a brand new, please, give them 5 minutes. I'm more than happy to give someone 5 minutes, probably not at NAA. And this happened just last week, and somebody said, I'll be at NAA, stop by my booth. And I said, I can't commit to that. So please just call me 2 weeks after. I'd love to talk to you about your product, and let's talk after. NAA is just so crazy. And I'm trying to go out and find the people that didn't contact me. I'm trying to find the brand new stuff, of the nuances, how things have changed. And I like going up to, Roto-Rooter, I know we partner with. I like going up to their booth and talking to not the guys I know, but the other guys, to see, what's changed behind the scenes. What don't we know about Roto-Rooter? What don't we know about Sherwin-Williams, et cetera, that I'd like to know about. And, quite often if you turn your name tag over, they don't know who you are, and you can talk openly and honestly to someone before you're mobbed. But no, the emails, the cold emails, cold calls, cold emails, cold flyers, save your money, don't work. None of that.
Yeah, I agree. The emails, even when they try to be creative and say, hey, almost like they know you, and they've kind of doctored up the email, those are probably the worst ones, because then you struggle and you go, wait a minute, I know I don't know this person, and even more reason to delete it. So the introduction through to somebody else to make that connection is very helpful. I agree. The trade show floor is just too crazy to be spending, an exorbitant amount of time in each booth. So the time is very limited, and to make the right selections are very important.
And something shouldn't be overlooked. If you are a brand new vendor to the industry and don't have connections, that's okay. Start working at a property. I listen to our property managers and our regional managers, and all the regional managers, we have 250 of them, they know who I am, and they're going to see something and say, you know what, this is really cool. And if a regional manager tells me that they saw something really cool, I'm going to go to that booth. I'm going to reach out to that vendor and find out a little bit more if I don't know about it. And so you don't have to know somebody who's connecting with any one of us. I mean, even starting at a property and just, it might be a longer process, but it's a much better process than trying to get in and cold call.
Good stuff. So what media, so we've talked about email. and it can work and not work. If it's personalized, relevant, important, you'll notice it. What other media in these weeks leading up to Showtime? What is your radar up a little higher on? Is it trade publications? Is it web? Are you watching your mailbox closer? What media? Social media? Is that playing any role?
I'll say no. None of it.
Yeah.
So I'm probably in preparation. I'm kind of figuring out, I'm probably looking internally to say what's not really working and what do I like, electronic payments. I just bring it up as an example. If it's not really working for us, how can I, get someone on my team or even myself to focus on that aspect to see why it's not working and what else is out there, et cetera. So I'm not really looking at the media. I'm more looking at internal and what are we interested in? What are we missing? What are things I've heard about at maybe other trade shows that people are starting to talk about?
So once you notice you've got some problems, challenges, bottlenecks, inefficiencies going on, and with the team, then your radar kind of goes up for those things.
Right.
And now your awareness of whether it's in a trade pub, whether it's an ad or a editorial, or whether it's an email, or whether it's a mailer, if it's relevant to something that you've identified as a pain point, you're probably going to notice it, right?
Yeah, and I am going to notice it. And, I read, trade publications and on the website and get flash, emails from the trade publications and scan through those. And, that's going to certainly help me see, if somebody has a huge success story on something and we're not doing that, it's like, that's really cool. Why aren't we doing that? And can we? But I'm not on social media looking for stuff. I'm not looking at, the television ads with Jeff Goldblum. They seem to be everywhere. Oh my God. But no, I'm not really looking at those advertisements or things like that. But if I do focus in on one thing, NAA's websites actually has a really neat tool that you can search and see by vendor category on the trade floor. And it's a really neat tool to say, okay, electronic payments I brought up as an example, who are all the electronic payment categories? And I can flag them, put them on a map, and I can walk into the trade show going, okay, I know I need to go here, 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 and here. So those tools are very useful and exceptional.
The ability to find amongst all
Right.
the clutter.
Once you identify something internally, then I'm going to say, okay, how do I go out and get the best use of my time?
I think you brought up a good point about the new vendors to the trade show. I wonder if it also identifies the new vendors for the year. That'd be something neat to have.
First-time vendors, I agree. I love visiting first-time vendors to the trade show. And I spend a lot of my time on the trade show in the smallest booths because those are probably the first-time vendors.
Yeah.
Would you call it bleeding edge?
The bleeding edge.
The bleeding edge. So questions from you in terms of you want to have dialogue, you want to be on their radar, their agenda. What do you got for questions for them from the audience here?
The show app,
Yeah, the show app for the conference, is that what you were referring to, looking for vendors by product category?
I used that last year, I think. I didn't use it this year. I haven't used it yet this year. I did use it last year, and I found it extremely difficult to use, but that might have been user error because last year I didn't carry glasses, and I couldn't even read my phone, so everything was too small. This year I'm committed to carrying these things so I can see what I'm doing. And so, no, I was talking about the website. And so if you go on the website and it lists all the vendors and categories, alphabetizes them, et cetera, and it's really, NAA does a great job.
It's also in this book too, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
category? Okay, good. Good.
And you mentioned the program guide too, and I think personally as a marketer, pound for pound, dollar for dollar, if there's one print place I would be, that's where I'm going to be.
Yeah, I have already gone through it, and I love the fact that you all are listed by category, so it helps me kind of identify where I need to to be and who I need to see. So I definitely use this when I get here.
You guys all interact with the printed program guide? You know,
Absolutely.
a big trend with shows is a lot of them are getting rid of that for the app. And I don't know if it's a money-saving thing or what, but it's making your life harder if you're not an app guy, right? And you don't want to be like living on that, so yeah.
It's
good
about
stuff.
the pre-planning. I'm not a pre-planner where I have to download the app and get all organized. When I get here, that's when I do my planning sometimes. I just get the program and I sit down when I have 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then go through it all.
So what did we hear on attraction, and what did we really get? They told us a lot. I took 2 pages of notes. I hope you took some. But they actually told us the formula on how to get their attention and get on their agenda. I want you to think about what you heard there. I heard a few things. I heard, number one, NEW, huge. And also heard problems. They've got challenges, problems. So as being good marketers, if we want to do better, quit selling products and services and start selling solutions to problems. Dangle the problem. If Gardner's got the problem, and I don't care if it's in an email or an ad or an editorial or whatever, he's going to notice it. That's what he said.
And you know, one thing that kind of goes along the same lines, and I don't know if this is going to come up later, but don't be upset, you know, if we just say hi and have to move on. You know, you know, if I am not having Sherwin-Williams, if I'm not having an issue with Sherwin-Williams, I'm going to say hi and shake hands and then move on. I'm not going to spend time at the booth. I'm not going to, you know, do this, that, the next thing. You know, I don't, you know, it's just, you know, we only have very limited time on the trade floor, and I really want to see those people I don't see all the time, or brand new things. And sometimes, you know, people say, oh my God, you're from Graystar, and I want to talk to you about my new marketing campaign. And I'm like, okay, you know, let's stop right here. I'd love to hear it, but I'm the wrong person. And so I'd love to refer you to the right person, but don't be upset if I say I'm the wrong person. Let's stop right now, because I'd like to refocus my time elsewhere. So it is a sort of a very hectic schedule in there. And so, you know, identifying my problems, but also not, I don't want to offend anybody by saying, hey, you know, we can't stop by and chat for 15, 20 minutes.
The best thing we can do is obviously point you to the right person to talk to. You know, you don't want to be talking to me about marketing. You need to talk to my VP of marketing, and they will do the research, and it'll bubble back up before the approval process is done. But trying to steer people, and almost always is after the show. Here's the person to talk to. Where are you located? You need to go see this person in Dallas, this person in Atlanta, this person in Boston, wherever it is. And that's the best way to build that relationship.
Yeah, and so now the meeting with them, the follow-up, when it's Alan King suggested you and I talk, boom. That's probably the best email subject line you could ever have.
Follow up.
Yeah. Gardner suggested you and I talk.
The meeting after the fact is, and the meetings that follow NAA are so much more valuable than, you know, the 5 minutes at a booth in the trade show. That's to tease us enough to say, yes, I want this meeting. And that's all you should do, is just try to get that meeting.
Nicely said. Pre-show, I want to jump to because we're going to run short on time. Was this a pre-question? Okay, bring it.
In terms of follow-up after the show, you know, when you're thinking about working bottom-up, working with the local property manager, or working at the corporate office, how important is it to be flying out versus an online meeting for you after that?
You know, for me, it depends. You know, I am going to personally require in-face meetings if we're going to do business together, but we don't have to be in-face every single meeting. And so online meetings, absolutely best thing ever, save everybody a lot of time. I can take them on my travel schedule and from anywhere in the country. So no, online meetings are absolutely fantastic, especially when you're in the dating stage and really starting to get to know stuff. I think, you know, before the marriage and before the honeymoon, there's going to be some FaceTime, but before that, online is just fine.
Typically, we will you know, understand where you're at, and if we've got an office or some location that's close and convenient for you, we'll have the disciplines that need to be talking to you there in person, and we'll do a webinar or something like that for people around the country to at least do the initial demo.
GoToMeeting, one of the greatest creations ever, for sure. Let's talk at show here. This is a very, compared to many shows, the exhibit hours are pretty short, right? You've got 2:15 to 6:15 tomorrow, and then you have the Friday window. Just take a wild swing over that 2-day run. Here's the question. How many hours, just ballpark, do you think you physically spend in the hall? And if you had to take a stab at the number of booths that you physically stop, and even if it's just a wave and a shake the hand and move on, hours in hall, number of booths that you probably engage with during the show? Anybody?
I probably spend every hour that it's open. I remember,
Or all hours?
yeah, last year, I think they turned the lights off and I got kicked out at the end. Number of booths though, how many booths are there?
Over 1,000 this year.
Over 1,000?
I think there's like 300. How many exhibiting companies? Yeah.
448?
What was it, 340? 440 companies. So just in a wild swing, what would you say, Gardner? Maybe you might stop at 20, 30 booths?
No, hundreds.
So you're like really moving up and down.
Yeah,
You're
it's-
living in that hall.
Yeah, I'm walking every aisle and trying to minimize the, friendship highs. Let's grab a beer later. Let's leave it for there. But no, I'm trying to get, even if it's just a quick walk by and say, you know what, I'd like someone on my team to look at this and just pick up a flyer and a business card and then give it to them later that day to say, this is where I saw them. Please go talk to them. I'm trying to go by a lot of them, most of them, even if it's just a quick walk by. And, so many of them, you don't have to stop. We've been talking about Sherwin-Williams. We all know what Sherwin-Williams is about, and so I might not have to stop at Sherwin-Williams or booths with very recognized, long-term names and partnerships, et cetera.
Okay, a lot of time and a lot of booths, Alan. What do you think?
Well, I think the biggest challenge we all have is really the meet and greet of the friends and
Caught into those.
caught in. If you've been in the business any length of time, we've got more friends than we can do business with, and people move from different companies to another one, and so we can't physically talk to everybody that we know, and we say hi and we try and keep moving, but I spend probably 90% of the show time on the floor, but in all honesty, probably almost half of it is with existing clients and friends saying hello. And I try and minimize that, but invariably you just can't walk down the aisle without being grabbed. And
That's probably about right, half.
yeah, and the other thing I would say, if you're a new vendor, and the key is not to try and grab us and try and get us in and give us a full pitch. The key is to plant the seed for a future follow-up. And if you can get us to do that, that's much more effective than trying to control us, because if we don't have time for a 15-minute demo, you wasted 15 minutes of our time and we're not going to call you back. And so trying to, it's the elevator speech, tell us what you can offer in 90 seconds, and if there's an interest, we'll have a dialogue quickly, say contact me or contact this person in my organization, and then that's the most effective way to start to build the relationship.
Okay, so let's go to, this will be a fun question here, and it's a double-edged sword here. You're walking down the aisle, you got all these booths, you see something going on in that booth, it repels. What keeps you away from a booth?
It's too crowded. There's too many people out there, and it's just,
Crowded,
I
just-
don't want to deal with trying to wait for somebody to come speak with me, so I'll
Waiting, so we got-
I'll avoid the ones that seem a little too packed and go to the next one until they're less crowded.
So too crowded, waiting. Alan, what repels?
Probably too much game show feel, which it's a serious business. We got things to do, and my kids would love to, if you have property managers that are present, they love that kind of stuff and the opportunity to win things. But typically, above the property level, you're trying to use your time effectively. So I'd avoid the gimmicky stuff.
Gimmicky, repels. And there's a lot of that on this show floor. We've done about 72 shows with our evaluation, and this show is heavy with that. Let me keep rolling on this, repels.
You know, nothing really repels me from, if I want to go to a booth, if it's crowded, if they have weird gimmicks, I'm going to go to the booth. I'm going to wait, I'm going to talk to somebody, you know, my focus is to go to that booth. And so, you know, what really repels me, and repels is really a bad word, is things that are not falling in my category whatsoever.
No interest.
No, well, and, you know, I don't do anything with, you know, general contractors. They just don't fall under me. And so, you know, what repels me is them coming to me and saying, hey, can we just take your time for, well, you know, you're talking to the wrong person. And so that's really the one thing that I'm like, please, you know, I'm happy to introduce you to the right person, but I'm not it.
Yeah, I agree. The over-aggressive vendor out there just trying to pull you in no matter what.
Too aggressive,
Yeah,
yeah. It's
it's
out
just-
right on, out in the carpet
Yeah, and you
lines.
can see it happening in front, and I just go the other way.
Okay, so you've mentioned, Gardner, which correlates with every study I've read. Number one reason you'll visit a booth is you have a direct interest in the product service. So beyond that, what attracts to a booth? What could an exhibitor be doing to make that as you go, oh, wow, I got to stop, check this out.
You know, it's interesting. I said I try to walk every booth up and down every aisle. What I'm doing is I'm looking at the name of the company, and I say, I know exactly what that is. We have a program in place. I'm done with that topic. Move on. And so what really catches my attention is the brand new. If I don't know what that company is doing, I'm going to walk up to the booth. And they can give me the 90-second speech, and I say, perfect, thank you, it's not me. But I know who the right person is, I'll send them your way, or here's the person, et cetera, and I'll move on. But I want to know, you know, it's just the name of the company, and I'm just looking for, you know, I'm looking for that target that I'm interested in.
So new, he's saying, and what is crystal clear. He doesn't have to guess. When he looks at your booth, he knows what you do. Yes?
But what keeps you away from us? Because you're going to look and say, I know Home Depot, they're on every street corner.
So you're right, and I'm probably not going to go to the Home Depot booth because you're going to pull me in. But I'm not going to go to the Home Depot booth because I have a contact at Home Depot that I can call at any time and talk to them about business, and talk to them about the new solutions and what's going on, et cetera. And so it's not that, remember when I said I'm walking down, I say, okay, I recognize that name, you know, we're talking about Sherwin-Williams. I know what they do, I don't need to go in there. Home Depot, I know what they do, I don't need to go in there. Now, as Alan said earlier, and it might be a 2 or 3 year process, you know, just because Home Depot is not our preferred provider in the MRO space or the contracting space, the material space, you know, over 2 or 3 years, I might visit the booth once, I might visit the booth twice. I'm probably going to, you know, you have to remember that the exhibition hall is also very visible, and me going to a Home Depot, everybody at every other vendor knows that I just went to Home Depot's booth. And so it might not be the best place. If I'm having trouble with my current MRO provider and I'm thinking about a change, I'm probably not going to do it in a very public environment like the hall here. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to go to your booth and say hi. It just means that I'm not going to, I might, you know, just swing by, say hi, and get pulled in quickly, by the sounds of it.
That's a great point on the from a national contract standpoint. That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of the privacy of it.
Oh, I got a phone call like half an hour after I visited a booth. Why were you there? Well, just a friend, I swear.
And it's the same way, it's the same way if you go to some of the social events and you have an opportunity, you're sitting there and introduce yourself, you know, there's an opportunity there as well. But we have the same challenge at the social events. If I'm doing business with NWP and they see me talking to conservatives or they see me talking to whomever,
Right.
you know, it won't take long, within 5 minutes or
Somebody
so.
knows.
There's somebody circling back saying, hey, is everything okay?
Right.
But use the social events as a way to introduce yourself. And in many ways, you can say, hey, that 90-second introduction at a social event here at NAA will cause us to say, hey, I'll stop by and see you on the floor.
Advice, yeah, good advice working those. So we're getting close on time here. Any at-show questions? I got one post. Any at-show? Anything you want to know about their behavior out there in the hall at the venue? Some pretty straight advice. This is what I heard. Make sure I exhibit is what, answer what, why, and who. Visually with your exhibit, yeah. Good question.
I will devote 100% of my time on Thursday to the floor and vendor contacts. On Friday, depending on my schedule, I may be slipping out, catching a flight back somewhere, but generally, the first day of the show is always the day that I spend the greatest amount of time on the floor.
I agree with that. Thursday's the big day.
And I'll say it primarily because your feet are really sore by the end of Thursday. And so Friday, you kind of wake up and go, oh my God, I have to do that again. So I will try to spend the entire time on Thursday. And I really like the format where they end it with a happy hour. I think that's the best thing ever. Because then you can stop by and that's when you can start building relationships and seeing your friends, et cetera. But Friday, I'll quite often spend more time very focused. On Thursday, I saw this, this, and this. I talked to 3 or 4 people Thursday night, and I'm interested in going back to see this one person. And that's what Friday's more like, a little more follow-up. And, I missed this one thing, and somebody saw something neat they told me about, and I want to go see it.
Wow. So has everybody got a few insights? This was about getting inside of their mind, how they see the world, how they plan, why they come, how they prepare, what they want, what they don't. Hopefully you've grabbed a few, and we're running a few minutes over, but can we give them a round of applause for being here? All right, here we go. Here we go. This is the critical question. You guys have overchoice in purchasing. There's more suppliers for almost every category you can buy. All of us, if we don't have your business, we want to be the ones to get it or a piece of it. If we do have it, we want to hold on to it. So here's the question. In the language of do's and be's, to get my business, do this, and do and be. So think about to get or keep, and you can speak from either side. Maybe it's the balance is good. Hey, you know what? If you're an existing vendor, you're going to keep my business. Here's the key. If you're a potential new vendor and you want my business or a piece of it, here's the key. Think about that for a moment, and then let's let that fire. And listen very carefully here. Yes?
If you want to do business with me, understand my platform and know what my needs are. If you're a software provider, you need to know what platform I'm on. And provide me with a solution to my need. So understand the makeup of the company and how you can help me solve a problem.
Understand me.
Yeah.
So it's less about me doing all this educating about me. It's more about me understanding you.
Yeah. Target the company that you really want. You'd be better off focusing on 5% of the attendees or companies and spending time focusing on them and trying to figure out how you can help solve their need. Because once you get in with 1 or 2 of those people, they will start telling, if you got a great product or something that's new that's going to help solve a problem, then they're going to start selling their friends or telling their friends about it, and you'll get repeat business from those initial successes. But
that's an amazing point. If you got 5 clients out of this show, out of the, call it 50 potential clients, you're going to do a whole lot better than if you touch base with all 50 and try to do a little minute piece of business with any one of them. So, you know, it's amazing. I mean, if Berkshire came to me and said, oh my God, you know, we're having such success with this, that's an in. That opens the door. That means I'm interested. Why am I not working with that partner or that person, et cetera? Because I know Berkshire, I know, you know, Pinnacle, I know Lincoln. If they're having successes, then why am I not? And so what am I missing? And so that is a huge piece.
And if we have a specific problem, more times than not, we've already talked to our colleagues who may have done more homework on this before we do and tell us, and they will lead us down a path. So when we get here, we have an agenda based on a recommendation from somebody else.
Another way to do business with us, and Amy hit it perfectly earlier, you know, proof is in the pudding. You know, the service, the commitments, the going above and beyond. Not just trying to, you know, sign the contract and sign at the bottom line and saying, hey, we closed this deal, that's great. It's the, did you perform in implementing that product? Did you perform when the, you know, going got tough and we had a problem, we had a challenge and we needed to call in? That's how you're going to do business, is proving to us that, you know, and proving to the industry. Because as you know, Alan said, chances are I'm going to call other companies to find out how they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, as large as everyone thinks it really is out there, I mean, we're all going to go off a referral that someone else has already had a problem with and learned from something. On the flip side, understanding that it's going to be a process, that even though, you know, Graystar might be using them and it's a great product, we're still going to go through the same process of due diligence and go through the product and look to build that relationship. And that's how you're going to keep the business after.
Thank you. And Amy, what would you close with on that topic, getting and keeping your business?
Well, I think as far as keeping the business, I think the service is the most important thing, and just be willing to understand that there are going to be hiccups and problems, but as long as you're reactive and adaptive to them, we can make it work, because I can tell you that we probably invested a lot of time before we made the decision to go ahead and try your product or service. So if we invested that much time, we really want it to work, but as long as you're reactive and adaptive to the issues that may come up, you'll definitely retain the business. And then the referral piece is big. So make sure you continue to network with everybody and find the right person to say, hey, you know, can you recommend me, because we've done some great work together. So.
Could I have one comment? You know, we're in the investment business, and all of us raise money and have fee clients if you're in the fee management business. But you know, the other big thing here is if I have a pool of investors, I want to keep doing business and go deeper with those investors. Same thing here is, you know, we have so many properties around the country that we may have a relationship in South Carolina, but the whole West Coast is not using that particular vendor. So I would also spend some time and try and go deep within the organizations where you may have a piece of the business, but you have, say, 2/3 of the portfolio that's still not using your product. So use the opportunity to meet, get a referral from an RVP that's in the Carolinas to somebody on the West Coast or somebody in Texas to help build those relationships. And if you're like us, once you're a national vendor, once you're on our vendor list, approved vendor list, anybody in the country can use you. But it's easier once you get on there to use you anywhere around the country. If you're a new vendor and you're not on the list, getting on that list is much harder.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming out here today. Thank you. Try to capture 3 big ideas that you heard straight from them. Take it back, share it with your team. Take a look at your exhibit. Take a look at your pre-marketing, your exhibit, what you're doing in the booth, your staff. Try to put them to play. Our job, a show works best when the organizer, NAA, and the supply side of the industry senses and serves the needs of the demand side. And that's why we put this session together today. So have a great show. We'll see you around. You'll see me on the show floor with my team tomorrow. We'll be evaluating some of your booths. Thanks so much for coming out. Again, thanks to you guys so very much.